everyone, and we're going to talk about the graphic novel and genre, its background and relevance.
Before talking about Watchmen and Sandman, it is important to define what a graphic novel is. And well, this is a really controversial term because some people believe that graphic novel and comic books are the same. But the thing is that calling something a graphic novel is not just a fancy way of saying comic books. There are clear differences between the two. For example, comic books are comics that feature multiple pages, and they combine stories over multiple volumes. They are periodic, which means that they are released monthly or weekly. Also, comic books that don't follow a larger story are usually more child-friendly or of a more humorous nature. These comic books, at the same time, are different from comic strips, which are the shortest ones that mainly appear on newspapers. For example, here in Chile, Don Memorario, which was published on El Mercurio. So, what are graphic novels? Graphic novels are book-length comic books, which are more complex. They have characteristics of a novel, for example, different narrative times, growth of characters, etc. They are intended for mature audiences, and they are not periodic like comic books. The genre was first recognized in 1964, but became popular in the 80s with Spiegelman's Mouse and similar novels. Here we have the difference in a nutshell between the two. A graphic novel is a self-contained story with a beginning, middle, and end, while in comic books there are usually many issues, and the stories unfold over months and sometimes years. The storylines in a graphic novel are wrapped up in mainly one or two volumes, while in comic books they are serialized. A graphic novel is typically longer than a comic book and better bound, while most of the comic books are relatively short and tell the story of the book's heroes over a long period of time. A graphic novel is intended for mature audiences, while the stories in the comic books are more child-friendly and incorporate onomatopoeic elements such as pow, boom, puff. Now there is another issue. Graphic novel, a genre or a format? Some people say that a graphic novel is a format, not a genre, since they look like a compilation of comic books. The term can also refer to anthologies that contain multiple comic book stories. On Cambridge Dictionary, we looked for the definition of genre, and we found that it is a style, especially in the arts, that involves a particular set of characteristics. Another definition says that genre is a particular type or style of art, film, literature, or music which is recognizable by certain features. So, based on these definitions, we believe that a graphic novel is a genre and not a format, since it contains particular characteristics that differentiate it from comics. Even though graphic novels have some similar characteristics to comic books, such as the use of captions, speech bubbles with internal and external dialogue, there is something that distinguishes them from the other, and it is that graphic novels have features of a novel. In the 80s and 90s, it began a renaissance for the graphic novel, with the British authors like Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore, with stories like Sandman and Watchmen. Since then, the underground popularity of graphic novels has made the greatest impact.
Now it is appropriate to refer to the two authors' relevance in this context. Alan was born on November 1953 in Northampton, England. Alan Oswald Moore led a married childhood growing up in poverty in a neighborhood lacking basic facilities. The greatest childhood influence that cast a lasting impression on Alan Moore was his highly religious and superstitious maternal grandmother who lived with them. Moore attended Spring Lane Primary School and was later accepted to Northampton Primary School. Here he was introduced to middle-class and better-educated people. Not able to cope with the change, Moore went from being a top-class student to a low-grading one, and as a result he lost interest in academic studies. Moore began publishing his poetry and essays in various fanzines during the late 60s and eventually set up his own fanzine named Embryo. He continued to live with his parents for some time and work on different jobs, including cleaning toilets. In 1971, he got married, and during the 70s, he became a cartoonist. His work began appearing in publications such as Sounds and Enemy under the pseudonym of Kurt Vile, Gilda Ray, and Lucia Baboon. He moved on to continue to more significant publications including Doctor Who Weekly and 2000 AD. Also, during this time, Moore began creating several popular series, such as The Ballad of Haley Jones and Beer and Quench. Alan gained life-changing recognition when he started writing for the British anthology magazine, Warrior. He worked on his most important series, Miracleman and V for Vendetta. He was awarded the British Eagle for Best Comics Writer Awards for both. His first American series was Saga of the Swamp Thing. His 1986 work, Watchmen, redefined the comic book medium, changing the tone of comics to date. By the end of the 80s, Alan Moore was publishing his own graphic novels, while also contributing to Batman and Superman stories. Also, towards the late 80s, Moore set up his own publishing imprint called Mad Love Publishing. More recently, Alan Moore has produced another imprint called America's Best Comics and Series, including The League of the Extraordinary Gentlemen, Promethea, Tom Strong Terrific Tales, Tomorrow Stories, and Top 10. Neil Gaiman was born in Hampshire, UK, and now lives in the United States near Minneapolis. As a child, he discovered his love of books, reading, and stories. Gaiman began his writing career in England as a journalist. His first book was a Duran Duran biography that took him 3 months to write, and his second was a biography of Douglas Adams, Don't Panic, the official hitchhiker's guide to the Galaxy Companion. Violent Cases was the first of many collaborations with artist Dave McKean. This early graphic novel led to their series Black Orchid, published by DC Comics. The groundbreaking series Sandman followed, collecting a large number of U.S. awards in its 75-issue run, including 9 Will Eisner Comic Industry Awards and 3 Harvey Awards. In 1991, Sandman became the first comic ever to receive a literary award, the 1991 World Fantasy Award for Best Short Story. Neil Gaiman is credited with being one of the creators of modern comics, as well as an author whose work crosses genres and reaches audiences of all ages. He is listed in the Dictionary of Literary Biography as one of the top 10 living postmodern writers and is a prolific creator of work of prose, poetry, film, journalism, comics, song lyrics, and drama. Also, Neil Gaiman writes books for readers of all ages. We decided to focus on Watchmen, so we are going to describe and tell a little bit about the time in which Alan Moore started to write this masterpiece. It was in the middle 80s. It was an overcast time politically. Most of the liberal world was afraid of the inexorable rise of Reagan and Thatcher. At the same time, there were elements of fascism that were started to be here in the streets with the rise of the National Front, and everything was pretty dim and sad. The Cold War was in its most important moment, leading to the thinking of the nuclear destruction as a real possibility. So Alan decided to write about this depressive present, but in a different way. He will write about it through a history happened in a future. Thus, in Watchmen, the idea was to reflect the actual world, discussing ideas of power and responsibility in a world that was becoming more complex every day. With the success of this graphic novel, people's vision changed. They realized that what they thought about the world and what they saw was not really accurate regarding the complexity of the world in which they were living. Alan Moore is a man who is really into magic stuff, so he believes himself to be a wizard, since his vision of literature is similar to magic. He believes that the real purpose of literature has become erroneous. The purpose of literature is to transform, not to entertain. Its purpose is to change the way people think, to make them go deeper and go beyond text. So that's what he aimed when writing, and what was achieved through Watchmen. Watchmen is composed of an uncountable important and relevant moments, so it was very difficult to decide just for one of them. When we started reading Watchmen, everything was nonsense, at least for us, considering that we didn't have previous experience reading graphic novels. So when we got to chapter 2, everything started to seem connected. When Laurie went to visit her mother, they start talking, and there is an important moment that changed everything. Laurie's mother, who belonged to a previous generation of superhumans, looked at a picture that had been previously presented in the first chapter. She started to remember the moment in which the picture was took, and in that way the memory connects us with the present story. Inside chapter 2, there are a lot of flashbacks that are extremely important to understand what had happened and what will happen before. Since that moment, we start to believe that we are actually reading a novel, not just a comic book, because it uses many features of a novel, such as narration, dialogues, flashbacks, simultaneous stories, and so on. Even though it has illustrations, we can imagine beyond of it. Graphic novel allow us to really get to know each one of the characters, and that is what a novel does. So after reading Watchmen, we are aware of what a graphic novel implies and the importance of it.